I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to this Fairfax County Department of Transportation public meeting. My name is Negin Haskarzadeh, and I'm a transportation planner with FCDOT's Capital Projects section. I will be the moderator for today's meeting, and my colleague Sandy Clanfer with Active Transportation section will be giving a presentation. This is our first meeting. We will have a second meeting tomorrow, Thursday, March 12th at 7 p.m., where we'll be giving the same presentation as today. Today, we will be sharing with you information about how active transportation safety and projects are prioritized by county staff and let you know how you can provide feedback on specific projects currently under consideration. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we do have some of our county staff from district offices here with us. So thank you for participating. And I'd like to introduce FCDOT staff that will be helping us answering questions at the end of the presentation. With us, we have Laura Ghosh, Section Chief of Active Transportation, Sandy Clanfer, Transportation Planner with Active Transportation Section, Amir Farshji, Transportation Planner with Capital Projects Section, and Noemi Miranda with Active Transportation Section will be assisting us with Spanish translation. I'd like to review some guidelines so everyone can participate and get the most out of this session. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube and then linked to the project webpage. Microsoft Teams does offer a live captioning service. You can find that by clicking the three dots and choosing language and speech and click turn on live captions. You're welcome to submit questions using the chat function at any time. After we have given this presentation, we will address as many of questions as we can. Please note your submissions to the chat will be part of the public record for this meeting. If you're on the phone, please hold your questions to the end. We will have instructions on how to ask questions at the conclusion of the presentation. Please note that this presentation focuses only on prioritization and selection process. If you have questions about specific projects, we encourage you to complete the online survey to share your feedback, and we'll provide more information about the survey in a few minutes. Next slide, please. The Fairfax County Department of Transportation and Fairfax Connector operate programs and services without regard to race, color, and national origin in accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. For more information, please visit www.fairfaxcounty.gov/connector/Title VI. Next slide, please. FCDOT has recorded a version of this presentation in Spanish, which is available on the project webpage. You may review this presentation at any time. FCDOT staff will be available at the end of presentation to translate any questions or comments provided in Spanish. Now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Noemi for the Spanish translation of this slide.
Una grabación en español de esta presentación está disponible ahora en el sitio web del proyecto. Las personas que deseen hacer una pregunta o comentario en español pueden hacerlo al final de esta presentación. Las traducciones de las preguntas y respuestas serán proporcionadas por el personal de FCDOT. Gracias.
Thank you, Noemi. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Sandy Clanfer, for the presentation. Sandy?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandy Clanfer. I'm a transportation planner with the Active Transportation section of FCDOT. Next slide, please. Thank you. In this presentation, we're going to share some background with you about this process, provide an overview of how we prioritize projects for funding, and share with you the opportunities available to learn more and to provide feedback on specific projects. At the end, we will be available to answer your questions and comments. Next slide, please. Before we go any further, I want to define one term that we'll be using a lot in this presentation, and that's active transportation. Active transportation includes all forms of non-motorized travel, whether used for recreation or to get from A to B. Included in active transportation is not only walking and bicycling, but also the use of mobility aids like wheelchairs, as well as small electric mobility devices like electric scooters, e-bikes, and skateboards. Next slide, please. In 2021, the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors pledged to spend $100 million over 6 years to improve safety and access for pedestrians, cyclists, and other active transportation users. Much of this funding would be used to construct capital improvements, including but not limited to sidewalks, crosswalks, and pedestrian signals. To help the supervisors determine how this funding should be allocated, FCDOT developed and implemented a project prioritization methodology. Starting from our universe of roughly 3,000 potential projects throughout the county, this process helps us understand the safety and access benefits of each project, as well as general costs and potential barriers to implementation. Next slide, please. Of the $100 million pledged by the supervisors, $56.7 million has already been allocated. An additional $25.4 million has been approved by the supervisors, but not yet allocated to specific projects. These are the funds that will be allocated based on the results of this prioritization process. The remaining portion of that $100 million, roughly $18 million, is expected to be approved by the Board of Supervisors at a future date, again based on the results of this prioritization process. In addition to this funding, FCDOT also funds active transportation capital projects through a variety of grant programs, such as Safe Streets and Roads for All and Safe Routes to School. Next slide, please. Money from this $100 million supports active transportation safety and access in many different ways. Of the $56.7 million allocated so far, $44.4 million of that will fund 78 new capital projects, including one project built by the Fairfax County Park Authority on their land. A further $4.8 million helps us maintain existing active transportation infrastructure throughout the county. Other uses of this funding have included speed feedback signs for the Fairfax County Police Department, supporting the Fairfax County Park Authority's trail maintenance efforts, and providing a local cash match for active transportation safety grants from other sources. Next slide, please. FCDOT continues to advance the projects that have been allocated funding by the county supervisors. Of the 77 FCDOT capital projects chosen so far, 31 are in project initiation, 27 are in design, 4 are in land acquisition, 2 are under construction, 11 are complete, and 2 were canceled. Next slide, please. To help the county supervisors select projects for funding allocation, we use a prioritization process to identify project benefits. FCDOT maintains lists of unfunded active transportation capital projects throughout the county, At this point, nearly 3,000 projects in total. These include projects requested by county residents, those requested by county supervisors, projects recommended in FCDOT planning studies, and projects identified by FCDOT staff. We use a 4-step prioritization process to narrow down this list of projects. In doing so, we coordinate extensively with the Board of Supervisors, and we also provide this opportunity for the public to comment on the projects under consideration. Next slide, please. This slide outlines the 4-step prioritization process, giving you an idea of where we are in the process and what we have done so far. At this point, we have completed the first 3 steps in the process: the need and demand analysis, the board and stakeholder coordination, and the prioritization review. This has enabled us to narrow down those 3,000 projects to a short list of 14 to 16 projects in each of the 9 county supervisor districts. We are now in step 4, in which we ask for input from county residents and perform more detailed analyses on shortlisted projects. Next slide, please. Now that you've been introduced to the 4-step prioritization process, let's look at each of these steps in a bit more detail. In step 1, we compile all of the projects on our unfunded list, the nearly 3,000 projects I mentioned earlier, and we perform 2 spatial analyses on each project, a need analysis and a demand analysis. Next slide, please. The need analysis looks primarily at demographic factors to determine the locations where need for active transportation facilities is likely to be highest. Some of the factors considered in this analysis include race, income, disability, age, housing cost burden, and educational attainment. Each project is given a need score based on its location. The map on this slide shows the spatial distribution of need scores across the county. Next slide, please. The demand analysis looks primarily at geographic factors to identify concentrations of pedestrian destinations, the places people are most likely to want to walk to. Demand scores are driven by population and employment density, as well as the locations of key attractions, including but not limited to schools, parks, public facilities, and hospitals. As with the need score, demand scores are assigned to each project based on its location. You can see the demand scores throughout the county on the map on this slide. Next slide, please. At the end of step 1, each project has a need and demand score, and we use those scores to develop lists of the 30 or so projects in each supervisor's district with the highest scores as compared to other projects in that district. In step 2, we share those lists with the supervisors for them to review and ensure that the list meets the needs of the communities each supervisor serves. As necessary, we add projects to these lists to better align them with each supervisor's priorities. Next slide, please. In step 3, we perform prioritization review analyses on all of the projects identified in steps 1 and 2. These 3 analyses help us better understand the potential benefits of each project, allowing us to narrow down the project list further. Next slide. The 3 analyses we perform in step 3 evaluate each project based on its proximity to pedestrian destinations, on local connectivity, and on its value to the county-wide regional trail network. On each of these 3 analyses, projects receive a score of high, medium, or low. Next slide. The first of the step 3 analyses looks at the number of pedestrian generators within a quarter mile of the proposed project location. These include schools, transit stops, daycare facilities, shopping, community and senior centers, and other key destinations. The more of these generators located within a quarter mile, the higher the project scores on this criteria. You'll notice that schools are bolded in the list on this slide. Schools are double counted in this analysis, both because they generate pedestrian demand all day long and because the children traveling to them are particularly vulnerable road users. Transit stops are also handled a bit differently from other pedestrian generators. Next slide, please. In addition to nearby land uses, other considerations also affect a project's pedestrian generator score. Proximity to transit, including within half a mile of a metro rail, VRE, or planned Richmond Highway BRT station, or within 300 feet of any other bus stop, boosts a project score. Projects in the highest need areas, as identified in the Step 1 need analysis, also receive higher scores, as do projects in special planning areas, such as suburban centers and community business centers. Next slide, please. In the local connectivity analysis, scores are based on the connections that a project creates or improves. Projects can score highly on this metric if they create a new connection to allow active transportation users to safely access a destination currently unconnected to the network, or if they provide safety benefits at an existing connection in the network, or if they connect the most important active transportation routes as designated in the county's Active Transportation and Trails Plan. Next slide, please. The final Step 3 analysis looks at regional connectivity. This is based on the regional trail designations in the county's Active Transportation and Trails Plan. Projects that create connections between multiple regional facilities score highest on this analysis, with projects receiving a medium score if they connect to or form part of one regional trail. Next slide, please. Once each project is scored on these 3 analyses, scores are converted to numbers. 1 is low, 2 is medium, 3 is high, and then added together to give each project a total Step 3 score between 3 and 9. The projects with the highest score in each supervisor's district are shortlisted to create a list of 14 to 16 projects in each district. These shortlists are once again shared with the supervisors and adjusted based on their input. Shortlisted projects move forward to Step 4. Next slide, please. In Step 4, FCDOT conducts additional reviews on shortlisted projects, developing a rough cost estimate, identifying potential property and environmental impacts, as well as a feasibility analysis. The project's shortlist are shared with the public, and a public outreach process is carried out, including 2 virtual public meetings and an online survey. Next slide, please. Moving forward, FCDOT will be completing these Step 4 analyses, collecting and analyzing public feedback, and reviewing the results of our work with the county supervisors. At the end of the process, a final list of projects will be presented to the Board of Supervisors, who will make the final decisions about which projects funding will be allocated to. Because of the limited funding available, only a small number of shortlisted projects will be funded in this round. This is expected to happen in mid-2026. Projects not selected for funding in this round of prioritization will be considered for future funding opportunities as they become available. Next slide, please. More information about this prioritization process can be found on the Fairfax County website by searching for active transportation prioritization or by using the QR code on this slide. On this webpage, you will find meeting materials, a list of shortlisted projects, as well as links to the survey for each supervisory district and our interactive map of shortlisted projects. Next slide, please. Our interactive map helps you find key information about shortlisted projects throughout the county. This information includes project locations and descriptions, project scores for step 1 and 3 analyses, and more. You can click on any project on the map to bring up information about that project. You can also type in an address in the box at the top right to help you quickly find projects near your home, workplace, or other location of interest. Projects are identified in both the survey and the map by both location and map ID, which may help you as you complete the survey. This map can be found on our website or by scanning the QR code on this slide. Next slide, please. The easiest way to provide feedback on individual projects is by taking our surveys. There is a survey for each supervisor's district, and each one is linked separately on the FCDOT website. You can see a sample question on this slide. As you can see, a map and a description is provided for each project, and you are asked whether you believe each project provides safety benefits. For each project, you can also share any additional thoughts in the provided text box. Each survey will also ask you a few questions about your active transportation usage, as well as optional demographic questions. You may take as many of these surveys as you'd like, so you can comment on all of the projects of interest to you, no matter where they are in the county. Surveys are open through 4:30 p.m. on March 31st, 2026. Next slide, please. As I mentioned a moment ago, there are 9 surveys, 1 for each supervisor's district. The surveys are linked on our website and can also be accessed directly via the QR codes shown on this page. Those who are interested in projects in multiple districts may take as many of the district surveys as you would like. Once again, all survey responses must be received by 4:30 p.m. on March 31st, 2026. Next slide, please. You may also provide feedback to FCDOT by mail or phone. You may mail a written comment to the attention of Project Prioritization, 4050 Legato Road, Suite 400, Fairfax, Virginia, 22033. You can provide a comment as well by phone by calling 703-890-5898 and using the project codes shown on this slide. Next slide, please. At this point, we've reached the end of the presentation. I want to thank you for your participation, and we will now take questions and comments from attendees, and I'll turn it back over to Nagin.
Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, as Sandy mentioned, we've reached the end of the presentation. Thank you for participation. We will now take questions and comments from the attendees. I've noticed that people put in the chat that the QR codes are not working. I will tell our technical staff no, and then we'll fix it as soon as possible for tomorrow's meeting. In the meantime, I will recommend using the Fairfax County webpage and searching for active transportation prioritization keyword to find the surveys. The surveys are live. We're only having issues with the QR codes. Okay, so just real quick so that everyone can participate in this process, we ask that you type your questions into the session chat. We already got multiple questions that we're going to go over them in order. And I do not see anyone calling, but if you are joining us by phone and have a question, you can press *5 to raise your hand and I will call on you. Okay, so Laura will be helping us monitoring the questions and answering some questions, and also Sandy is here to answer some of the questions as well. Laura, I'm gonna turn it to you to go over the questions in the chat.
Yeah, so the first question we received from Tom Weiland is, how is demand analysis done for biking or cycling?
Sure. So when we're doing the need and demand analyses, those apply to all forms of active transportation. So that includes walking, cycling, e-scooters, folks who use wheelchairs or walkers. So it's all that same analysis.
Thank you. Reese Eisenhower asked, is there a potential to include additional data points in prioritization analysis, such as car ownership rates and public health information, such as obesity rates?
Sure. We do we do look at households without a vehicle as part of our need analysis. Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, is there a potential to include additional data points in prioritization analyses, such as car ownership rates and public health information, such as obesity rates?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we do include households without a vehicle. We do, as I mentioned as well, look at disability. So we are incorporating some of these factors. It's certainly something, you know, we can certainly consider maybe tweaking the variables when we next do this process. But at this point, we're looking at that from the perspective of households without a vehicle and disability. Thank you for your question.
Okay. Tom Weiland had a follow-up question to your response. He asked, but the demand radius is too small for cycling. 1/4 mile doesn't make much sense for cycling. And so could you, I think, Tom, maybe what would help is that it's not just the 1/4 mile radius. The 1/4 mile radius dictates how much demand a particular location has. It doesn't indicate where people are traveling from to get to those locations. And then we separately have the regional connectivity and local connectivity measure that was done as well for the projects. And so I think that connectivity measure accounts for those longer range cycling trips as well. So did you want to, if you have something to add, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that covers it. We certainly aren't expecting that everyone who's cycling is going to come from within a quarter mile. Yeah, we are just using that figure to understand kind of what is in the immediate vicinity of a given location as far as uses that are likely to generate more active transportation trips. And we recognize that those active transportation trips, a lot of them are going to come from outside that quarter-mile radius.
And Tom, just to add, if you feel that there's a project that is particularly helpful for bicycle commuting, please put that into the comments in the survey. That would be very valuable for us. Okay, so the next question is Fairfax County project number 111, the missing segment of sidewalk on Birch Road, included as one of the 27 in design?
I can answer that. So the project 111 that is listed on the survey, that's for funding for construction of this project. The project already received funding for preliminary engineering and partial funding for right-of-way. So just wanted to clarify that this will be for construction of this project.
And Diana Berlin also asks, does the analysis have a separate score for school bus stops, like the school bus stop at the intersection of Birch Road and Tucker Avenue, where there is no sidewalk on either side of the road and the short missing is needed on Birch Road?
Yeah, so the thing about school bus stops is that they are all over the county. There really isn't anywhere in the county that doesn't have school bus stops, because there are children all over the county and they all need to get to school. So we definitely have considered looking at school bus stops as one factor we take into consideration, but because there really aren't many places that don't have school bus stops, it doesn't really help us differentiate projects from each other. Thanks for your question.
Right. Jeff Parnes, sorry, Jeff, if that's a mispronunciation of your last name. He asks, are these slides available? And what I've done is pasted a link to the Active Transportation Project website. And in the big red box, there's a link to the slides. They are available. Okay. Sonia Brehe asks, when projects are listed in two selection, particularly since you were limiting the number of projects in each district. I'm looking at several projects along Arlington Boulevard that are in both Mason and Providence.
So, yeah, there are quite a few cases across the county where projects are either on the border of a district or crossing a district line. And what we did in those situations is that we evaluated those projects in both districts. So they were in, when we started with the step 1 analyses, they were scored both, on the list of each of the districts that they were in, which meant that they could be moved forward in any of the districts in which they were located. The way the process worked out is that most of those projects ended up that made it to a short list ended up on one district short list. So those projects are there. Folks are welcome to take the survey of the district that may not be the one that they live in or work in. If they happen to have an interest in one of those projects that crosses district lines, and of course on the map it will show the location of that project, including that it's on a district line.
Great, thank you. Okay, Cheryl Sim asks, what role does VDOT play in the evaluation process? And does VDOT have to veto on crosswalks? Sorry, does VDOT have a veto on crosswalks and sidewalks?
So we work with VDOT throughout the process. They do own most of the roads in the county, which means that for the most part, when we want to build these projects, we do have to get their approval. We certainly do regularly collaborate with VDOT. You know, where we have challenges like those, we are usually able to work with VDOT to find a solution that works for everyone.
Okay, I think also, Cheryl, there's kind of two processes, right? So right now we're in the prioritization process. So the coordination that we've been doing with VDOT is to determine whether or not VDOT has any projects that correspond to the locations that we're evaluating to move forward in project funding allocation. Separately, once projects are funded, we work very closely with VDOT to gain approvals on our proposed solutions for those locations. So that working with VDOT to gain approvals is after the projects are selected. Okay, Vanessa Liponsky asks, number 709, are we able to expand the study to include possibly adding the trail to connect Live Oak to Georgetown Pike outside of the Beltway? This would connect 495 Shared Use Path directly to Langley Swim and Tennis Club, Potomac Heritage Trail, etc. This would create a longer cycling, walking, running, wheelchair use path without having to interact with motor vehicles.
We are certainly we're certainly familiar with the concerns that a lot of residents have about Live Oak Drive and being able to walk or bike safely and connect to that trail. We are exploring several different options for how we can, what the right approach there is and how we could potentially fund it. So there is, we are looking at that as far as changing the specific projects on the short list. That's not really something that can happen at this time, but we are aware of that concern, and we are exploring ways to address that concern. Thanks for your question.
Okay. Diana Berlin has a follow-up to her question previously about project 111. So she understands that it's been allocated some funding, but she asks if it is included in one of the 27 projects.
And the answer is yes. Yes. Just make it simple.
She also understands that there are many bus stops throughout Fairfax County, but wouldn't it seem important to note school bus stops when there is no sidewalk on either side of the road for school children, such as in the case of the missing segment of sidewalk on Birch Road? And I think the answer to that is, Diana, if you're aware of such locations, please indicate in the survey that that is a concern. And when we bring the project into our scoping of the project and further analysis, we do identify whether or not there are school bus stops at those locations and incorporate that into the design, the proposed design. Okay, Vanessa Liponsky wanted to rephrase her last sentence regarding her comment on number 709. That's the Live Oak Drive comment, just for awareness. She says that this would create longer cycling, walking, running, wheelchair use path without having people directly interact with motor vehicles. It would also connect the paths outside of the Beltway along 495 instead of primarily inside the Beltway. Vanessa, thank you for your clarification of your question. And then Keenan asks, are there population density and socioeconomic factors taken into account when selecting projects? How are communities where the population or homeowners don't speak up loudly taken into consideration? I'm seeing quite a few higher density areas have few or no projects listed, while there are many in low density or single family home areas.
So yes, absolutely. We do take population density and socioeconomic factors into account. The socioeconomic factors are contained primarily in that step 1 need analysis. Things like population density, that's one of the factors that we're taking into consideration as part of that step 1 demand analysis. We do, you know, as far as communities, as you're asking about, where the population and homeowners don't speak up loudly, you know, we are certainly aware that there are some communities that are better able to mobilize and press their case than others. We do have, you know, we do make sure to get a strong geographic distribution. Unfortunately, given the limited funding available, we have to eliminate a lot of good and important projects, even to get down to the point where we're at on the short lists. Another thing to keep in mind is that the Richmond Highway BRT is coming, and a lot of active transportation improvements along the Richmond Highway corridor will be included as part of that project. So that meant that we were looking, that runs through 2 districts, and in those districts we were looking at projects that are not going to, that wouldn't be addressed by that project, the Richmond Highway BRT project. So we do, that may explain some of what you're seeing as far as higher density areas where there aren't as many projects. We are, the county has our One Fairfax equity policy, and we are certainly careful to take equity into account as we go through this process and make sure that we are not just that we are making sure that the needs of as many different communities throughout the county are being met. Thanks for your question.
Okay, and Jeff Myron asks, first question, where is the throughput breaking? What are the top 2 to 3 gating steps from selection to construction, especially VDOT? What is being done in parallel versus sequentially, and how do you make the next steps plus dates plus VDOT comments responses visible to the public?
I guess I can start with that. Nagin, if you have additional thoughts, please feel free to jump in. What the process of getting a project built, even once it's funded, does take some time. We do have to go through many different phases of design and review, and each of those takes time. As far as the top 2 to 3 gating steps are concerned, I think we are definitely doing as much as we can to move projects through this process. Nikki, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add.
All right. So after the projects are selected and finalized, we are taking the final list to the Board of Supervisors for their approval. Once the projects are approved and then funding is allocated to each of them, then we start the pre-scoping process on individual projects. Pre-scoping usually takes about 3 to 6 months. Then we'll forward the project to our design division. Design typically depend on the complexity of the project. Usually take from any time from, I would say, 1 to 3 years. Again, depending on how complex the project is. Then it goes to utility and right-of-way. Some projects do not require any right-of-way or any utility relocation, so we may bypass that steps or may not. Again, depends on the type of the project and complexity. And then it goes to construction. Construction will take any time between 6 to a year and a half. These are very rough estimates. So overall, a project may take from 2 to 5 years to be constructed from when we start pre-scoping. Hope that answers your questions. If you have any follow-up, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll be happy to answer your follow-up questions as well.
Jeff Myron also asks a question regarding the walkway maintenance map. So he says, on the walkways maintenance map, who is the named data owner who can accept corrections and publish updates? And what cadence or SLA will you commit for resolving unknown segments? Context where the segment is listed as red or unknown. It's challenging to hold parties accountable for remediating issues with the existing active transportation network. And I think, Jeff, that question is outside of the scope of this 100 million for active transportation surveys. And so we'll be happy to follow up with you following the meeting. If you could reach out to me, and then we can contact you afterwards, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, Diana Berlin asks if area residents have noticed that the demand analysis does not incorporate all aspects in it. Is it updated if the information is provided by area residents? And if so, where should it be sent to be updated?
If you have a question or concern about about the score of a particular project, please put a comment in the survey. You can also reach out to us. We can put the email for the DOT in the chat, and they will make sure it gets to me and we can investigate.
Thank you. All right, Jeff has another question, question number 3. For right-of-way obstructions that block active transportation travel, what is the single intake path and escalation owner, and what response and resolution SLAs will you commit to? Context prior reports to VDOT have been closed without any notes in the ticket, and multiple follow-ups with permits or enforcement have so far been unsuccessful in approximately three months, which seems to have too much friction. Again, this is a question that doesn't relate to the 100 million for active transportation prioritization process, and we'll be happy to follow up with you outside of the context of the meeting. Okay, and then question 4 from Jeff is, given the volume of projects and the concern about slow delivery, where specifically is Fairfax using AI today or planning to in the next 6 to 12 months to reduce cycle time in the project pipeline? For example, automating plan quality assurance checks, summarizing or triaging public comments, accelerating traffic and safety analyses, drafting standard design narratives or permit packages, or flagging right-of-way utility conflicts early, and what measurable time savings have you seen or are you targeting? And Jeff, I really appreciate your questions. They're very insightful, and they're great questions, but they are outside of the scope of this meeting, and which is focused on the 100 million for active transportation prioritization process. Yeah, thank you for submitting your question, and I hope to follow up with you regarding them. Okay. Diana Berlin asks, why would a project show on the Fairfax County countywide January 2026 Transportation Design Division monthly project status report, but not show up on the local district January 2026 Transportation Design Division report? Diana, that's also a great question. Again, outside of the scope of this meeting and the 100 million for active transportation prioritization process, I will have to follow up with that as well. Thank you. Okay, and then the last question that I have is question 5 from Jeff Myron. Your monthly status reports are helpful, but it is hard to see what actually changed month over month, as I often notice no changes month over month, but it takes a lot of flipping back and forth to confirm it verbatim. Can you switch to a change highlighted format? For example, explicitly flagging what's new since last month for each project and highlighting revised dates, budgets, risks, or providing sample delta column so stakeholders can track progress without rereading the full table. And Jeff, we are currently updating the monthly status report format to comply with ADA guidelines. And so I will pass your comment on to the folks who are doing that. And then last question from Diana Berlin. Approximately how long does it take to go from pre-stage design to stage design? Or sorry, read that incorrectly. Approximately how long does it take to go from pre-design stage to design stage? Once a project is finished with the design stage, how long does it take before construction begins? And then how long does it take before the project is completed? And so I think Negin already provided some guidelines for the approximate stages that projects follow. With, I think, one caveat in that sometimes a project is funded for a particular stage, so up to 30% design, and then we need to find additional funding to move it into the next stage. And so that can stretch out project timelines. We will be having a board transportation committee meeting to discuss project schedules in the near future. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to provide more context for your question at that time. Megan, do you want to add something?
Nope, you covered it all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then Jesse says, I second Jeff's question about AI usage. Why wouldn't how quickly projects go through the proposal be within the topic of how money is allocated to the active transportation projects? Doesn't automating a lot of these processes weigh into how expensive some of these projects end up being? And so the $100 million for active transportation process that we're currently in is to select the next projects to allocate funding. So which projects do you want to see completed with the approximately 25 million that we have already been allocated to the 100 million for active transportation? The county does look for opportunities and is currently conducting an audit to look for opportunities to accelerate the project timeline and schedules. I think AI is being considered as part of that as well. Okay. And then one last question. In best run jurisdictions, the prioritization process is tightly linked to a delivery system that keeps cycle time short. Compared to peer best-in-class counties and cities, what are the 2 to 3 biggest changes Fairfax could make to deliver projects faster? For example, limiting WIP, fewer projects in design at once, setting standard cycle time targets by project type, creating a single cross-functional delivery team, design plus utilities plus right-of-way plus VDOT liaison that resolves issues in real time rather than sequential handoffs, or using more quick build delivery. Which of those are you willing to implement in the next budget year, and how will you measure success median months from selection to construction? Example, WIP is work in progress. Thank you, Jeff.
I do think this is also outside of the context of this presentation. We can follow up with Jeff after the meeting. And then as Laura mentioned, the BTC Board of Transportation Committee meeting will cover some of the project timeline and delivery questions that Jeff and others have. So Jeff, we can follow up with you after the meeting on your questions.
Yes, thank you. Okay, and that concludes that concludes the meeting for today. Thank you very much for your questions, and we look forward to hearing your comments and your survey and reviewing the survey results. As a reminder, the comments and surveys are due by 4:30 p.m. on March 31st, and we look forward to receiving them. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks everyone for attending.